You know what? Sometimes I honestly think that Airbnb is trying to lose customers. They're just trying to do stuff to get people not to book on Airbnb and then go straight to VRBO, to not book a house and then maybe book a hotel on Airbnb instead. Airbnb's made a lot of really stupid mistakes over the last 5 years. And as much as we like to talk nice about Airbnb, I think we need to talk about some of these mistakes, and maybe public discord on what they're doing wrong might get them to fix a few things. So this video is a gaff compilation targeted right at Airbnb. Let's go. So funny story, a friend of mine was trying to book a property and she couldn't because she was screened as a party risk. And then no more than 48 hours later, a host sent me a message going, "Hey Sean, could you do a video about how Airbnb is really screwing up their party screening and preventing people from booking houses when they've got a new account?" This person who reached out to me asking for booking advice going, "I can't book an Airbnb. I'm trying 2 separate accounts and it won't let me. What do I do?" We couldn't fix the problem. She found the same house on VRBO and she booked on VRBO instead. And then of course she said, they need to figure this out or they're gonna lose customers. Well, it looks like they already did, didn't they? They just lost one to Airbnb's party ban algorithm. And that's not the only thing here that they screwed up. In an attempt to prevent parties, they also designated a maximum of 16 guests on Airbnb. And for the longest time, you could not bring more than 16 people to a house to stay, even if the home could sleep 30 people. It was one of their preventative measures against parties. I did notice that they put 16 plus now on Airbnb when searching, which means I think they reneged that policy. And that's really what we're hoping for here. One thing that we would all like Airbnb to take back, we've been waiting for years, hosts, is their decision to take our money during COVID. The first week of April, Airbnb wiped out everybody's calendars due to this travel pandemic. And what they did is they refunded everybody regardless of circumstance, just because of COVID. Now the thing is, if Airbnb wants to get people money and be a good sport, cool, but they abandoned hosts, violated the refund policies, and it was against the terms of service. And now there are class action lawsuit after class action lawsuit being filed against Airbnb over this breach of contract when giving away these refunds. Now Airbnb did come back and say, hey, we'll give you all like a small piece of what you would have made for the unbooked nights, whatever. They try to make it right, but they didn't make it all the way right. And they cost the collective host community probably tens of millions of dollars, and they gave us back pennies on the dollar for the inconvenience. Now, some cities stayed empty for a long while because of travel bans and regulations. Some areas rebounded fast, thankfully here in Texas. We had 4 or 6 bad weeks and then everything was cool. Now, a lot of us hosts also got the benefit of the revenge travel that came. It wasn't all doom and gloom forever, but Airbnb still made a pretty bad decision and they stood by that bad decision, and it cost them a lot of hosts at that time. It's really funny. If we're gonna bring up the past, I'm gonna bring up the past. They made a mistake right away. You see, when Brian Chesky and his 2 buddies started Airbnb, they got a booking maybe 2009, I think. They were in San Francisco. They rented out their living room to somebody to stay on an air mattress, and that was air bed and breakfast, air mattress, bed and breakfast. And they had a guest. They succeeded. And then they just gave up. They stopped. You know what they did instead? They tried for months to build a website that they were then going to call roommates.com. And then they finally went online to look for roommates.com and realized that what they've been trying to build for months already existed. And they're like, oops. The only reason why they all did Airbnb is they were back home on the East Coast with family for the holidays, and they're eating going, what are you guys doing with your lives? Why don't you guys just move home? And they're like, no, mom and dad, we've got a business. We're working on a business. We got something cool. They're like, what is it? And the guys are like, Airbnb. So they finally committed to this Airbnb thing, and then they finally got some venture capital and they made it happen. But the fact that they delayed years off this potential disruptive technology curve cost them a lot of money, and their valuation when they went public probably could have been much greater if they had that 2-year head start. Here's a weird one. This is a mistake that they made for a long, long time, and I think they did a version of fixing it. They used to claim a security deposit on Airbnb. But you know what? It was a sham. There was never a security deposit. They never pre-authorized the card. They never collected the money. Here's how it went. If a guest booked and you marked that you had a security deposit, Airbnb would use that as an authority to charge the guest for stuff that you claimed were damages that they found the guest at fault for. Normally, what had happened is without a security deposit, if a guest damaged your property and you said, hey, the guest broke this chair, they'd go to the guest and go, hey, you broke this chair. It is your fault. You need to pay. And then the guest would go, no, I'm not going to pay. So then Airbnb would have to pay you, the host, out of their pocket. See, when you mark a security deposit, all it does is give Airbnb a little extra leverage to take it out of the guest pocket. By marking security deposit, all you were doing was potentially saving Airbnb money in a time that there's a dispute that the guest wouldn't pay. You were going to get paid either way. See, Airbnb was trying to save money on payouts by having this sham of a security deposit. Now, what they've updated though, is if you have something like OwnerRez, a channel manager that collects a security deposit because they're starting to respect third-party softwares now because they understand their place in the industry, they'll let you really collect a security deposit as long as you like dot your I's, cross your T's and everything. Airbnb also has made a mistake that's similar to this, which is they're trying really hard to compete with VRBO, Booking.com and everybody else. So they've adopted this simplified pricing model, and it could be cool if you wanted it and you chose to do it. And it basically makes your payout model the same as Booking.com, where the guest pays $100 and then they deduct money from you and they don't add any fees to the guest. Simplifies the pricing model, so it's easier for the guest to understand. This is important for Europe because they're competing directly with Booking.com and they want adoption from Booking.com customers. That's why they did it. But what they then did is, without any warning, they just switched you. If you were in Europe or you were using a channel manager that was based out of Europe, anything like that, they would make you simplified pricing without your consent. And what that did is everybody's prices all of a sudden weren't getting the 11 or 14% markup, and then everybody was giving away money that they did not know they were giving away. And this was happening in the United States. I have students with softwares that are based internationally, and because they are attached to an international channel manager, they've been forced to go into simplified pricing. And without any word of warning, all of a sudden, you're giving away 14 or 15% of your gross revenue because the guest isn't paying their service fee anymore and you didn't know it. And that was a huge gaffe. They did a couple other things to really spite some hosts, which are also driving people to VRBO. Not only that they're not letting people book when their account is new or they're too local, and some of the party things that they're doing, like they need to really rework that party algorithm. And not only that limit of 16 guests, because for the longest time, people would have to go to VRBO for that. Other things that they've done. A guest now has 72 hours to report a problem, right? And they can try to get a refund within 72 hours. Here's the thing, why did they change that? If you guys read the terms of service in Airbnb's refund policy, it states that Airbnb can choose to go behind your back more than 24 hours in the future if they deem it appropriate. So Airbnb's like street curb, like we have got a 24-hour rule thing, that was never really exercised in full anyway. If a guest missed that 24-hour mark and then a week or two later they said, oh, it was really bad, we left, we're upset, blah, 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 Airbnb could still go back in your pocket 2 weeks later. We've had plenty of times where Airbnb's made these changes and just did whatever they wanted to 24 hours aside. So now all this is doing is it's encouraging a percentage of the travel community who knows that they can get refunds to wait even longer, to book longer stays, to wait to have a problem till later. So now us hosts who have to deal with problematic refund hunting guests, we don't get to find out in a day. We have to find out in 2 or 3 days. They get to ride the clock for 3 days and try to get free stuff. This is super bad for host protection because we have to deal with guests that lie. It's just the truth. Guests will lie. There's a phrase I learned in sales. It's buyers are liars. People, when it comes to their money, it comes to their autonomy, when they're at odds with the company, they'll say whatever to win. And unfortunately, us hosts, we get to see that every day. So Airbnb is not protecting us with the 72-hour rule, and they should take it back. And now further, to add insult to injury, if within this process, they decide to cancel a reservation and they deem it to be your fault, right? This is a decision that they get to make, and they just get to do this to you. They can take a percentage of the gross revenue of the reservation as a fee from you, because they're gonna give the guest a refund, and because they're no longer getting that host fee, they're gonna charge you a percentage of the reservation up to $1,000. They can make money off of your back because they sided with the guest, and now they're not gonna lose any money siding with the guest. This again is a way that they're not protecting hosts, which are the most important part of the platform. What are hosts doing? They're going to VRBO. They're getting with people like Mark from Boostly, and they're creating their own websites, and they're doing direct bookings, and they're doing all sorts of stuff to not need Airbnb anymore. One of the reasons why people continue to use Airbnb, they have what I would call enterprise level software for the little people. Their dynamic pricing stuff like their rule sets and their multi-calendar and their automated messages for operations. These are all great things, but they come with a cost, which is the service fee. They're starting to come with other costs, which is Airbnb's semi-tyrannical approach to running their business model, a totalitarian approach to running their business model where we no longer get the autonomy that we should have as the provider of the space. Airbnb also likes to try to legally say that the guests are ours, and that's actually not true. The guests sign up for Airbnb. The guests sign up to use Airbnb and they pay Airbnb. And then Airbnb handles that money with a company called Airbnb Payments or something like that. And then we get paid by Airbnb after everything is kosher. Airbnb then can still have final authority on the money and take the money, restructure it, do whatever they want. And at the same time, they're trying to say that our contract with the guest is direct. When somebody enters into a booking relationship with us through Airbnb, Airbnb has no liability or anything. If that was true, Airbnb wouldn't have any ability to claw back money that they gave us for the guest, because technically that payment should be direct. If Airbnb is using simplified pricing, for example, and we are paying the fee, then the guest would be paying us directly. We'd be paying Airbnb a fee. And if there's a cancellation or anything like that, we would be the one remitting the refund in that case. Wouldn't it be true? Since Airbnb is the one managing the money, I think that their contract is inaccurate. And I will argue that till I'm blue in the face. I've said it for years. And this is a gaffe because it could be a legal problem for Airbnb one day. If Airbnb is clawing back all this money for refunds and canceling and giving us refunds without even talking to us, because they do that sometimes. They'll just make a decision and refund the guest and we don't get any chance to make our case. This could lead to lawsuits where they just lose big. Now, maybe they've got some really cool fat insurance policy that will cover these types of things when they make those mistakes. But I don't think their insurer would appreciate some form of negligent, reckless behavior that causes them to get into a big fat lawsuit and then having to pay millions and millions of dollars out to hosts for taking people and giving refunds against the terms of service that are in their own contract, or breaking the nature of our relationship, stating that we have a direct booking relationship with guests. Maybe I'm just coming in hot because I'm upset at Airbnb. Why could Sean be upset at Airbnb? For any reason after all the things that they did for them? Well, let me tell you a story. I used to be called Airbnb Automated, and I grew my little business from 10 doors to over 100 doors without using any other platforms aside from Airbnb. And all the videos I did for years were all, here's how to do Airbnb. Great marketing for them. Absolute lovely marketing. I created thousands of hosts. And then one day, their brand protection team says, hey, you can't use Airbnb in your name, and you can't use our logo on your thumbnails. So stop doing that. And I had lawyers tell me to ignore that, to just keep doing my thing because they got equity out of it. And there's some sort of defense that I could have made because they allowed it for 5 or so years. I decided to change it anyway. I changed this channel to my name because it's time to transcend, to do more than just Airbnb content, to maybe do more than just specifically short-term rental content, and to do more business content, because when we're running an Airbnb business, we're running a business. I'm actually really not mad at Airbnb about that, but you could say I'm mad at Airbnb about that and just get into some drama, and we can have some fun with the drama, right? Make it dramatic, make it controversial. But to be fair, in a future video, maybe we'll do a video about all the nice things that Airbnb's done, all the good stuff that they've done, because they've made some good decisions, they've made some bad decisions, and here we are in the middle of the mix. I'd like to hear your thoughts. If you've had a positive or negative Airbnb experience, put it in the comments. Let's tell some stories, let's have some fun, and as always, guys, I'll see you on the other side.